Hi, Andrew here for Tech Reporter TV. I've got the Samsung Galaxy Tab S2 in front of me, and in this video we want to compare it with the iPad Air. Maybe it seems on the first view like a strange comparison, but it's actually not, because you can get the Galaxy Tab S2 with an 8-inch display like I have here and with a 9.7-inch display, and the specifications are identical except for the display size, and something similar goes to the iPad Air 2 and iPad Mini 3 of course, so it's actually quite easy to compare those platforms even though the display size may be different with these two tablets right now. Let's start with the comparison and take a look at the build quality. The iPad Air has a body made completely out of aluminum, of course, which is a very high build quality. We've known that from Apple since the first iPad. The build quality of the iPad Air 2 and iPad Mini 3 is very, very good. Samsung still hasn't come over to the metal side completely. The bezel around the device is made out of metal, which feels quite high-end, but on the back there's still plastic. It's a good plastic, it doesn't feel cheap, but it's still plastic, so it's not as high-end as the iPad Air 2 or iPad Mini 3. But what's actually going for Samsung is the thickness, because the S2, both of them, are only 5.6 millimeters thin. That's very thin. The iPad Air 2 is 6.1 millimeters thin, and the iPad Mini 3 is even thicker with 7.5 millimeters. So Samsung is definitely winning with the thickness. Even though if you don't compare them directly, I don't think you will think that you have a thick tablet with the iPad, of course, but if you compare them directly, you will definitely notice that. There's also a weight difference, quite strong one. The Galaxy Tab S2 8.0 only weighs 265 grams, while the iPad Mini 3 weighs 331 grams. And a similar difference is seeable with the 9.7-inch versions of both tablets. The iPad Air weighs 437 grams, while the Galaxy Tab S2 9.7 weighs 389 grams. So the Galaxy Tab S2 series is a little bit lighter, and I guess that's due to the plastic back, and they don't use metal for the body all the way. Alright, let's take a closer look at the displays. We've got an 8-inch display on the Samsung Galaxy Tab S2 8.0 and a 7-inch display on the iPad Mini 3, and of course a 9.7-inch display on the iPad Air and iPad Air 2, and a 9.7-inch display on the Galaxy Tab S2 9.7. So the displays are very similar, and actually Samsung adapted the format that Apple used, the 4:3 format. Previously Samsung always used displays with an aspect ratio of 16:9 and 16:10, and now they adopted the 4:3 format, which is quite nice, I think. So Apple kind of went the right way there, even though of course if you watch videos you have a black bar at the top and the bottom. But not only the display sizes are the same, also the resolution. All of those four tablets have a resolution of 2048 by 1536, so it's quite a high resolution. Apple calls it a Retina display, and the pixel density is very high. You have clear text, the icons look very clearly, and that's very nice. But there are a couple of differences. Apple is using an IPS LCD display, which has very nice viewing angles, while Samsung is using a Super AMOLED display, which has very nice viewing angles as well, but also in my opinion displays color much more saturated, looks more contrasty, and it's a little bit brighter actually. I like the Super AMOLED display a little bit more, but people have different opinions on that matter. Let's open the Chrome browser and let's open Google on it, just to see some color differences. This is actually the iPad Air 1 right now, but the iPad Air 1 and iPad Air 2 are very similar. But you can see that here the whites are a little bit more yellowish, while on the Galaxy Tab S2 they're a little bit more bluish. In my opinion, the white on the S2 looks a little bit more white, but actually it doesn't matter that much, because if you don't compare them, then this is white for you no matter which device. Let's turn up the brightness just to see how bright they can go, and you will see that the Galaxy Tab S2 can be a little bit brighter. But again, this is the iPad Air 1, not the iPad Air 2, so the display comparison isn't exactly fair right now. Let's turn the brightness down again a little bit for the cameras. There we go. And drop out of here. Let's take a look at the rest of the hardware. In the iPad Air 2 is the Apple A8X processor, of course, while the Samsung Tab S2 series, both of them have an Exynos octa-core chip that Samsung made by itself. And on the iPad Mini 3 we have still the A7 processor. But actually it doesn't matter that much because both operating systems run very smoothly on the platforms. Even TouchWiz has become quite good, what we weren't used to in the past. And that's the important thing. The hardware on the iPads is generally a little lower than on the Samsung tablets, especially what's the RAM size, for example, but it doesn't matter that much because iOS is very heavily optimized for its hardware. There is one difference though with the storage options. The Galaxy Tab S2 has 32 GB by standard. You can get also 64 GB, while the iPad Mini and iPad Air, the cheapest versions, only come with 60 GB, which is not that much actually. And of course the S2 has a micro SD card slot, not of course because Samsung decided to abandon that strategy with expandable storage on the smartphones, on the Galaxy S6 and Note 5, but the tablets, even the high-end tablets here, they still have a micro SD card slot. Another feature that both tablets has, the iPad Mini 2 and the iPad Mini 3 and the Galaxy Tab S2 series, are fingerprint readers in the home buttons, and I've gotten quite used to them. I like them a lot. What I don't like that much is that on both you have to press down the button. There are a little bit more elegant solutions like Huawei is using on the S and Mate 7 and the Honor 7, where you just have to press the finger a little bit on the back, and yeah, it's a little bit easier. Here you have to press it down. It's not that big of a deal, but it's a little bit more work. Let's take a look at the cameras. We've got the 2.1 megapixel camera over here on the S2 series, while the iPad Air 2 and iPad Mini 3 have a 1.2 gigahertz front megapixel camera, of course, not gigahertz. On the back, the iPad Air 2 has an 8 megapixel camera. Same goes for the Galaxy Tab S2 series, but the iPad Mini 3 only has a 5 megapixel camera on the back. It's not that important, I guess, because cameras on a tablet are not that important. Yeah, that's basically it. Both have quite a good battery life, over 10 hours for both of them. If you watch a video on medium brightness with activated Wi-Fi notifications, you get a little over 10 hours. The battery life on both tablets is quite good. And that's basically it. That's the comparison between the iPad Air 2 and iPad Mini 3 with the Galaxy Tab S2 8.0 and 9.7, even though we don't have all of the tablets here, but a nice representation of them. Which tablets do you prefer? Write us in the comments. And yeah, I'm NJ for Tech Reporter TV. Thanks for watching.